Good afternoon. My name is Rob Betzel. I'm the local market executive at Hargray Fiber for Macon and Warner Robins. I want to thank you for taking the time to view our PowerPoint presentation on how to build and secure a safe teleworking environment. With everything we have going on today, with the number of employees being asked to go home and work due to COVID-19, it's more important than ever that we stop and consider how we enable those employees to work effectively and make sure that the businesses that we have in place continue to operate securely and in the way that our clients and our communities expect. Today, what I'd like to go through is a number of different topics outlined here. We'll discuss telework responsibilities and how to establish those for your employees, how to ensure that your employees understand about how to implement patches, updates, and scans on their computers. A couple quick comments around password enforcement, how to handle phishing attacks, where your data should reside and how you should make sure that data is secure with employees who might be working from home on their individual computers and laptops, Wi-Fi routers and your internet connections, and how best to ensure that those are secure and operating in a way that will make sure your employees deliver the service that your clients and community expect. We'll also discuss Zoom, a tool that I'm sure all of us have begun to utilize lately in their home offices, and how we can protect from some of the things that we've been hearing in the news. And then I want to close out quickly with a discussion about our Hargray Smart Office, a solution that we have in place here that might help some businesses that have been displaced to their homes work more effectively. And then I've got a few additional best practice tips. So my hope is to cover all that in the next 15, 20 minutes. So teleworking responsibly and the responsibilities thereof it really should start with the idea of the company defining a brief telework policy that sets the clear expectations and parameters for working at home and how to securely maintain integrity of our data. This policy will help reduce confusion regarding the responsibilities and defines do's and don'ts for the employees. Things that you want to include inside of a telework policy would be what device people should be working from and should not. So if you've issued laptops or computers for work, whether they should be allowed to also use their cell phones, iPads, and home computers or not. If they are using home computers, how they should be set up and configured. How should emails be handled? Should you be checking those from home devices or not? Also, if you have secure data, whether you should be using a standing VPN for access for some or all of that data. What cloud services and tools are and are not acceptable. In an at-work home environment, you may find it more convenient to transfer files through personal Dropbox accounts or Google Drives that may or may not be in keeping with the company policy. So you want to make sure you've defined all those. Again, this is a 1 or 2 page document that helps the employee understand what the rules of the road are when working from home. And while this is being done in light of COVID-19, it's something that, quite frankly, should exist before and can exist well after. So a well-defined document that you continue to refine is something that will help you ensure your employees can continue to be productive today and into the future. Updates, patches, and scans are something I've talked about for a long time in my capacity as an IT provider. You just want to need to make sure the employees, especially if they're using home devices, are connecting to a business network. And when doing so, they've got the computer set up with a good antivirus, anti-malware, anti-spam product there on the computer that is set up to basically scan at a regular interval. If not every time they boot the computer, at least once every 2 to 4 weeks at minimum, if not once a week or once a day. You can be set to run in the off hours if they leave the computer on. Same goes for basically making sure that you've got the patches. So Microsoft, especially Microsoft and even Apple, offer automatic patching for both their operating systems and their applications. And you want to be sure that those things are turned on to where they're automating those patches and updates, installing them in off hours preferably, or if you're pushing them to the devices, you've defined when they must implement them. Here at Hargray, our IT department vets patches, sends them to us, and then we implement them. And we have a forced cycle that we have to honor, and we know when that's coming so that we're up to date, patched, and protected. Key security software should also patch. And again, most things like Microsoft Office and Adobe and Apple all provide automatic patching, so you need to have those turned on. Some things that happen when you don't have good patching turned on is you can compromise, your Wi-Fi connections. You can compromise the business network through the end device that people are on. So again, as you're letting people have personal devices potentially accessing corporate resources, company resources, you want to make sure that they're set up first and foremost to be secure before you even give them that first piece of access. Password protection, and this is something that quite frankly everyone loathes, and I wish there was a better way to handle it, but there's not. The bottom line is we need to have strong passwords. 12 plus characters, that's a mix of numbers, symbols, capitals, and lower letters. Passwords that combine 4 or 5 words, phraseology, that are easy to recall but difficult to guess. So this would not be the names of your family members, but might be things that are lyrics or other things that would not be connected directly to you. This is why a lot of those Facebook polls are so dangerous when you're defining your favorite song, favorite bands. But using words and phraseologies do allow you to provide a more complex password that's easier to remember. The company, we should be defining how often they should be replaced. So verification timeouts, we need to make sure we have those turned on that require people to re-authenticate. Let laptops and computers lock. That way they're just not permanently and persistently logged in. That creates additional breach potential. And again, the simplest thing is don't print your password. Don't leave your password out. Don't put it on pieces of paper that are sitting out on your desktop. All of those things are basically just very simplistic risks that people today can't avoid. And if you have the luxury of having multi-factor authentication available to you, whether it's on different applications you use, on the computers you use, or even on the VPNs you use, having that multi-factor authentication is even a better way to provide security. So it's not only something you know, the password, but something you have, the authentication device. So whether that authentication device is sending you a text message or it's sending you an application launch on your phone, anything that requires you to have a separate and disconnected piece of information that you are verifying that yes, you indeed are logging in to that site, to that application, to that device, ensures that it is you at the device and not a third party. And again, those are just additional layers you can apply on top of passwords. Google provides them, Microsoft provides authentication tools. Some of your password protection applications like LastPass provide third-party application authentication, and many portals have it baked right into what they're doing. So anywhere multi-factor authentication is possible, I challenge you to enable it. Phishing, smishing, and vishing. Phishing is a cyber attack that basically lures someone into clicking a baited disguised as something trustworthy. This comes in the form of emails. It may be shown as HR or IT or finance. They can be links that are showing you that you have a package shipped, or in some cases now a PO that needs to be reviewed. All of those are things being sent to people hoping that they will interact with something that is not what is expected, which then allows the phisher to gain access to the system. Spear phishing is the more individualized version of it. So it's taking someone that they believe you trust and and pretending to be them while phishing you. And so again, I'm targeting it from maybe a CFO or an IT director or an IT person specifically to you, or any other outside person that they may have gained access to the name of that might be associated with you. And so again, this is where we've got to trust that the person sending something to us is sending something they normally would send and not an out of the blue phishing attempt. Whaling is really directing something towards a CEO or other high-level, high-stakes employees. And so whaling is really a spear phishing attempt to go at the CFO or at the CEO, or some cases spear phishing from the seat of the CEO. This is where you hear a lot of the attacks where people are being asked to wire money because the CEO is in, South Florida buying a boat and needs the money right now, and staff takes directed action via an email that may not be normal for that person. And again, vishing and smishing, these are actually using phishing through your phone's SMS and your voice calling. And so again, these are just different ways of getting you to interact with people in a way that isn't normal, but gets you to give up information or allow them access to systems and to a different piece of information that you might not want them to have by pretending to be something they're not. So where should work reside? And so this is a case where we sent people home, and in many cases, data has historically been secured behind our internal firewalls on our premises, or portals that are only accessible from our office. And so as we begin to sort of open the world up and allow people remote access, we got to define where to centralize our data. And so this becomes more important in a mobile work society. People find that they use the applications they know or the ones that they use in their personal life as much as at work. And so this is where you have problems with data that has historically been on a file server in your office, now being copied to laptops to then be shared through Google Drives. And again, earlier I said Dropbox or other file sharing applications that may not be secure. So as a business, we need to define where that data can be transferred to and shared through. And again, without defining that process so people take good care of the data, not maliciously or intentionally, but accidentally, they can expose that data to storage facilities that may or may not meet the same level of security that your internal business may have when it was all locked up on premise, or you only utilized a specifically internal system for sharing. So again, you just want to define that. So, should we be allowed to use in our laptops? And on those laptops, should we be allowed to have certain extensions? So unnecessary browser extensions can allow data to be leaked out without you realizing it. And again, you may want to mandate just only allowing things on company-owned devices so that you can continue to control and secure them better. But again, when BYOD, bringing your own device to work, is the way you operate in this time, being really clear that very early on, I said that written policy that says we do not use Dropbox, we do not use fill in the blank, or we do use this one and this one only, helps the employees understand where they can move the data and where they shouldn't. And again, even email becomes a little bit more complicated because things you might have historically transferred via portal are now being emailed. And again, email creates that opportunity for something to leave your system in a way that might not be secure and in keeping with different regulations you might be under. Wi-Fi routers and connections. So we really need to think about something as we've gone home. So our home networks were probably not set up to be business offices. So we need to make sure that our employees understand about, is the encryption on in their Wi-Fi? So if you're using their home Wi-Fi, is the encryption on for the Wi-Fi? Are we using a proper encryption key on the wireless and not something easily guessable? And quite frankly, let's hope they're not borrowing their neighbor's Wi-Fi because they don't happen to have anything. And when they do have it set up correctly, do they have the latest updates and patches on their routers? Many places that's something they don't do automatically unless that device is managed by the ISP. And even when it is it up to date and secure? You need to make sure that's the case. And again, complexity of the router password is important, making sure that other people can't access it, because you don't want people sharing their wireless with their apartment neighbors or their neighbor next door in their house. All those things just create additional places that security can happen. And really, at any point like that, when you've lost control and you're uncertain, getting them to use a VPN tunnel that secures the traffic from the device to the other end of the access is always a great idea to secure business data. Worst case scenario, there are times when you want to supply them with a mobile hotspot by a known provider for the most sensitive data and just taking them totally off of that shared medium. Because again, we don't know what the rest of the family's doing on the network. And if they've got other laptops, gaming devices, and iPads, and the kids are doing things, all of those just create additional exposure potential for the things that we normally have control within our office. So I want to stop talking about bandwidth for a minute. This is something that many people have not given much consideration to. We've all got a great home internet connection that when we come home, we can stream our shows now that we're doing cord cutting, or we can, watch YouTube and the kids can be on, TikTok, or they can be on Roadblocks or any other streaming games. And that works great in the evening, but most home services are shared medium. So the home shares the bandwidth among the devices there, but they also share it among the neighborhood or the area. So in many residential areas, the bandwidth is concentrated as it leaves the area to the carrier's network. And so you've got to think about the idea that says that if I've got 150 people in my apartment complex or my neighborhood who have all gone to work from home and all their children at home, we've created a higher demand on the bandwidth that may have been planned by the carrier. So based on the amount of bandwidth that we have prescribed to our home or bought for our home, we may not have purchased enough to do both. And we've also turned what normally is an evening time, daytime cycle, daytime in the work time and evening time for our personal leisure and our family time, they're both being done day and night. And so you've really got to think about the bandwidth. In some cases, the bandwidth you really need to think about It's really the upload bandwidth. So when you're working from home, making those phone calls or uploading those files up to the cloud as much as down, or using that Zoom call or that Teams call or that GoToMeeting require your streaming video to go upload. And so that high download speed of 500 meg down and 50 meg up may be perfectly fine in a normal day when you're streaming content to yourself, but when you're turning it around and sending it up, and especially now that kids are using Zoom meetings and everything else, you may find that your bandwidth going up may be the problem. So talking to your carrier to make sure you've got not only the right download, bringing things into your PC, but upload to send things out is critical. And again, you may also want to think about scheduling time, trying to avoid everyone being on a streaming service at once, right? So if 3 family members all need to be Zoom calls, having them all at the same time may not allow any of them to operate as effectively. And so as a business, we need to think through how our employees are working from that way. And again, helping them understand how to make sure they've got the right amount of bandwidth and they're using it effectively is key and critical. So let's talk about Zoom and Zoom bombing. And so I want to thank Rob Betzel, who's actually a team member here at Hargray Fiber and our IT team, sort of put this slide together. And you guys are welcome to pause this and read it in detail. But I'll just talk through. You know, we've all of a sudden jumped on the Zoom bandwagon and are big users of video conferencing in one form or fashion. And so it's been exposed that Zoom almost 100-fold increased their utilization of their service in the past 30 days. And to quite a degree, the system has worked. We haven't had large outages of Zoom that I've known of for anybody, which is a great thing to say, but then it's begun to expose sort of the underbelly of how the product's set up and what could be issues. And so Zoom bombing is the big one. And that's where someone interrupts or invades a meeting and starts doing inappropriate things, and they may not have been once invited. So a couple of things you got to think about is that you don't share your meeting ID out with people other than people you want to attend. And if it's particularly sensitive, you might want to consider actually setting up the waiting room function, which actually allows you to allow people into the active meeting, which keeps people in a waiting room until you allow them to join, which keeps people who might have the ID from joining directly in if they might be doing things wrong. And we're just setting a password on your meetings. So many people basically set the meetings up without a password, without a meeting room, and then you can't stop people from coming back in when you dismiss them. And so again, and the last thing you can do is we've begun talking about is the idea of you can lock your meeting once everyone's there so people can't rejoin. And so all of those things will help people from Zoom bombing a meeting. It came out that Zoom may have been tracking people and who was in it. And to be honest with you, it was meant to be a corporate tracking function that has been removed, but they did have an ability to know whether you had Zoom forward in your screen or whether it was back, whether it was in focus for more than or less than 30 seconds at a time. They've turned that off because people were really worried whether they were being tracked and how they were looking and what they were doing and being recorded. And that was never the intent. The intent was just to have the ability to understand whether people were focused on the Zoom meeting or doing other things. And client vulnerabilities exist in every application. There's always a way to distort or disturb a system that people will hunt and find. And again, Zoom's done a good job of continuing to update their client as they find things, but there will always be bad actors in the environments who will be looking for ways to cause harm or cause theft. And I think Zoom's done a good job of continuing to upgrade those. Encryption is another area that people sort of passively presumed that things were secure. And so we began to businesses began to go on Zoom more. They began to realize they were having very sensitive conversations. But again, it was the data being secured such that maybe other people couldn't gain access to it later or possibly, step in and gain access to observing the call that was going on. And again, like anything else, it's a case where it's end-to-end encryption or not. And so I think that there are, improvements to every business's and every product security stance and encryption stance, and Zoom's acknowledged that and continues to work with it. But again, if you're going to have a very hyperly sensitive conversation and you're going to be sharing things, you need to think about who's on it and how you're sharing it and where those risks to be. And again, Zoom doesn't sell your data. That's something else that I think they had a real bad beef on. It's like, hey, were you selling the user data? And Zoom, to their credit, has acknowledged that they're not selling that data to other people. And I think that's in their privacy policy. So again, Zoom and any other video conferencing solution, I chose to focus on Zoom because that's the one we know all about, but whether it's Microsoft Teams or GoToMeeting or WebEx, all of these things are potential risks and things that we should think about. And again, I always say, when you're using a free product, how much did you really pay for the level of use that you're getting? And so I think where people are moving up to the pro license with Zoom, there's an expectation of protection. So if you're using a totally free product, you ask yourself, like, am I getting what I pay for? Am I paying for what I need? And so that's one thing I would just, again, just a couple of notes around Zoom. So as I start wrapping this up, I'd like to bring your attention to a product that Hargray Fiber has called Hargray Smart Office. And so it is a small business collaboration product that allows you chat and calling and conferencing in a very simplified, contained system. It's part of our actual hosted Smart Office product for voice that allows you to actually make phone calls to the outside world and take phone calls from the outside world and call each other. And so it simplifies your business because it does bring it down to a simplified bill. It makes all of those things predictable. It also allows you to have the latest technology. And so within our Smart Office product, we can provide software-based client on your laptop, which is what I enjoy and use. So I make all my phone calls and things from my laptop. There's a cell phone application that turns my cell phone into my business phone. So when you call my office, I actually can answer from my cell, but it's answering the office number. And when I call out from it, it appears that I'm calling from it, along with actually having traditional desktop phones that are IP-based that allow you to have that sort of never outgrow your phone system opportunity. Lets you scale up, scale down at no additional cost, other than just changing out the license you need. And again, it's being web-enabled, connecting anywhere. It's what allowed us to so quickly as a team to move back to our homes, which we did really beforehand, but even more so now with other team members, and still be able to connect as if we were still sitting in the office. And so my phone is still sitting at my office, but my laptop here with me at my home and my cell phone, all three operate as if they're one single device. And so, as people continue in the way of working remotely, I think that these collaboration platforms, mobile hosted voice platforms, are going to become something that small businesses should look more heavily at instead of the on-the-wall lot inside the office PBX that we've used traditionally for years over year. So a couple other best practices. This is something I just seem to always want to bring up when I talk to people about technology and things they should be aware of. Is you turn off your Bluetooth when you're not using it. It's much like your Wi-Fi. Having those off just reduces the number of places that you're advertising your connection. Don't click links. We're going to head in from the summer into the fall and into the holiday season again, and that's when all of the UPS and FedEx emails start coming in that aren't real with click here to track your package, which doesn't really take you to a tracking your package. If you're not expecting to get an email from someone providing with information or links, call them, speak to them on a different channel. You don't reply back to the email and say, hey, did you send this to me? Like, take a different tack, a different path of communication to make sure they indeed sent you that information. You hover over the link, and if the link says it's supposed to be going to FedEx, but it's going to some weird, misspelled, long URL, it may or may not be valid, and so you really should take a harder look before you click on that link. And again, verifying those sources, like I said, is it coming from a trusted source? Is it from the app you really intended? Those come out every single day to people. Again, I mentioned multi-factor authentication and password protection. I don't think you can mention that enough to people. Just really taking a ownership position on the security of your devices and of who you are and how you share that is critical for all of us. And I think as employers, we should share that with our employees, which I'm hoping this video is something that you can share with your employees and have them look at. And USB drives. I cannot tell you how astonished I am at the number of people who still pick up random USB drives and plug them in their computer. For years, I've carried a USB drive that actually is what they call a rubber ducky, which actually is a keyboard baked into a USB drive where I've coded certain commands to that USB keyboard. And how many people, when I leave it at places, like I will leave it actually when I speak at events, that will pick it up and plug it into a computer later, and it basically sends me a message telling me that someone plugged it in. And it's just people don't stop and protect themselves from devices. They just think, they presume safety. And I think realistically now we need to be in a position of caution first, and then action and use later. And so again, just some additional tips that I hope come to help you out with your technology position. And as you look to how we're going to continue to be in this telework environment going forward, quite frankly, I believe we're going to find more and more people telework even as we begin to recover back from the forced work from home state. So I hope this was informational and useful. Again, I'm the local market executive here for Hargray Fiber, so if I can ever be of any use to you, I hope I'm pretty easy to find here in the community, whether it's through the Chambers of Commerce, to the Rotary Clubs, or other community activities that I participate in. But feel free to reach out to me with any questions, concerns, or any other needs you may have. Again, Hargray Fiber wants to be a partner to any of the businesses here in the community that need one, and I hope I continue to be of use to you guys for many years in the future. Have a great day. Thank you.